So, let me give, first, Jacques, you, an applause, please. Can everyone please applaud Jacques? He is the European Solutions Director for Talent Management at Right Management United Kingdom. With him, we have two remote speakers that will be presenting in conjunction with Jacques.
Okay, so hello Amsterdam. Hopefully Amsterdam can hear me. And there will be three people speaking, so you may wonder why. Three people for 30 minutes. So, and there's a reason to that. The reason to that is that the project that we are going to share, which is a project ING launched, a global project ING launched last year, is that we put our brains together to make this happen. So transforming a culture is not necessarily something each company has to do on their own. And we did put three different cultures together to make this happen. So that's why we are going to present the initiative that ING did last year. And I think the title is important. It's Transforming the Culture by Empowering Employees in Engaged Leader Networks. And I'm going to share that. And we can see Annemieke and Vincent. Welcome, Annemieke and Vincent. So Vincent is the Global Head of Lending for ING Wholesale Banking. And he was the power sponsor of the initiative. And Annemieke is the CEO of a company called MeetingMoreMinds. And her passion is ecosystems, culture transformation, and how to make that happen. And you know who I am. So the structure for the 30 minutes is quite simple. Why did ING do that? And I'm going to interview Vincent on the purpose. What was ING trying to achieve? Then we will go on how we did it. The middle of the presentation will be about how we did it. And the final part of the presentation will be, so what? What about the outcomes? And Vincent will come back to share around the outcomes. So the clicker is not working again. Yep. So first question, and it's going to be an interview style, so I'm going to be interviewing Vincent and Annemieke and interviewing myself. So Vincent, to start with, and I hope you can hear me, first question to you, and always start with the purpose. Why did ING launch this initiative, and what were you trying to achieve?
Thank you, Jacques. I did hear you. And if you look at what ING was encountering late 2019, is that we got a survey result back from the entire wholesale bank organization, where we did a poll under all the employees to measure their engagement. And what came out was that we could definitely improve on that engagement score. But furthermore, what we saw is that there were a number of elements, like strategic direction was not fully understood, and also they felt that they could little contribute to the overall purpose. And therefore, we thought we need a initiative to connect the work floor back to the strategy, which is usually defined in a one-liner. But if you believe in such a one-liner, but you can't really contribute to it, then it's really pointless. And therefore, we started this initiative to bridge that gap.
So I'm showing the slide, Vincent, here about the engagement survey from the Gallup research, but I don't know if you want to comment that, but I think you already talked about that. So if I move to, go on, sorry.
Yeah, just to add, and why I think this slide is very important, is that although you can start an initiative, it is not necessarily all the people who buy into that immediately and start running in order to improve. So you have a small set of people which is intrinsically engaged and therefore will help you out. And so it is all about how do you create a ripple effect that people start believing from the orange portion in order to really make a change.
So the initiative was called Ride the Wave. And I loved that word. It was an ING word. And it was about identifying the company's wave makers. So can you comment on this slide that I'm showing here, Vincent?
Sure. So it was a metaphor which was creating waves, having wave makers, and I just mentioned also the ripple effect. with multiple pillars, and the client is central. But also, if you look at from the past 5 years, we have been on the forefront on sustainable finance and greener finance. Of course, also given COVID, digitalization is at the forefront, and as we just mentioned already, yeah, leadership is all about connecting, and to have leadership, direction, and strategic execution was one of those four pillars surrounding the kickoff of the initiative.
And you can see this photo about the ripple effect, and that may not be new. It's not the first time I'm sure you're seeing that picture, but this was about making it happen. And how did we create wave makers to make it happen?
So if you look at the wave makers, ultimately we have asked wave makers to voluntarily sign up for this initiative, and I think that is something that we have done deliberately, because you want to have intrinsically motivated people to raise their hand, and that is what we have done. And we explained what our purpose was, what we try to do, and yeah, we got quite a massive response out of that from APAC, from EMEA, and from Americas. And so basically, we were in a luxurious position to have a lot of people, but then still, you need to make sure that you not necessarily pick the ones that you would always pick, because you always have people who are raising their hand. Because for this specific purpose, yeah, we wanted to have the right people.
Before we move to how you selected the wave makers, Vincent, you did have a key question because you were launching this initiative when COVID was hitting the planet. So, what were the leadership discussions at the ING Wholesale Banking leadership team sessions to go or not go because of COVID?
Yeah, there was a very heavy debate, because we were end of 19 setting this all up. Of course, COVID started in the beginning of 2020, and we were really in the mode of rolling this out regionally. So going physically to APAC, to EMEA, and also to Americas. And that whole structure was already standing. And of course, the travel was no longer possible. We didn't really have a culture yet to use Teams or Zoom, and therefore, yeah, we were, yeah, a bit taken aback to see, okay, but yeah, what now? However, the issue didn't go away. So we still had that disconnect between the strategy and the work floor, and that needed to be solved. Maybe even more so in COVID times. So if everyone is at home and they don't really have the sense of direction, how they can contribute, yeah, even more reason to launch this project. So in a small team, we decided to go ahead, but we really had to pioneer in order to make this work digitally, because we really went back to only from a small studio in Amsterdam to broadcast this.
Okay, so that was the why part and why ING decided to do that. And I'm now going to move to the how part. And Vincent already started talking about that around how did ING select the wave makers? And they were clear about the role of the wave maker. So, Vincent, do you want to comment on this slide?
Yeah. So in order to determine yeah, who could contribute best to this whole process, it is good to have criteria upfront, that we set the expectations straight. And so we wanted to have highly engaged persons, that they would be able to translate separate goals. And so you can see on the slide what the criteria were. And so I think what is good is, yeah, then also test this and to see how can you make sure that the ones that you select indeed also will meet these expectations. And there you came in, Jacques, because you have been instrumental um, in providing an assessment in order to have those wave makers tested.
So this is why this is how we helped ING identify the wave makers, and it's always a complex question because it was based on volunteers. So what do you say to the people who are not chosen, and what do you say to the people who are chosen? And as you can see on the right, there were more than 120 candidates in the 3 regions, and we supported ING by using science. We know from science that there are 8 behaviors which are behaviors with a high probability of describing a wave maker. So we used the 8 dimensions which are on, sorry, the 9 dimensions, I'm getting my maths wrong, the 9 dimensions on the right, which we know from science, and that's a partner of ours, expert in leadership, who talks about behaviors. And what we also did is that the science is different in each region. So what makes a good wave maker in Asia Pacific is different to what makes a good wave maker in Europe, and is different to what's going to make a good wave maker in North America and Americas. So the science is actually regional science, which we applied to the candidates depending on the regions they were coming from. So as you can see here, there are some of them are quite common sense. To be a great wave maker, yes, you need to be energetic, dynamic, and use enthusiasm to get others involved. Because as wave makers, they had to get others involved. And you can see, because they were wave makers and they wanted to bring new ideas to the execution of the strategy, yes, they had to be comfortable with ideas that had not been tested. So anyway, we used these 9 behaviors to help ING move from 120 candidates to 86 wave makers. And each of them got a development report. On these dimensions, where did I score, where we were supposed to score to be a wave maker, where am I not in the ideal range? So each person, the 120, and then we had a dedicated workshops, actually more than one, to explain to the non-selected people why they were not selected. And that's sometimes things organizations don't do. Tell the people who are not selected. And they loved it, because after that, feedback was, I was really angry not to be selected, but now I understand. And the rule was mathematical. There was no influence from the ING leaders and business leaders, and that was to Vincent's credit, that they just took the maths as they were. They took the science as they were. And you had to be in a range for 4 of these dimensions to be a wave maker. If you're not in a range for 4, you were not a wave maker. That's as simple as that. So this is how we identified the wave makers. And do you want to comment on the value of that, Vincent, before we move to how we rolled out the program?
Yeah, indeed, because if you look at the, you of course know a number of individuals that are signing up, and by means of this assessment, we also saw surprises, because we had expected that they would be very change-minded or innovative, and from the scoring, that not necessarily came out, and therefore, yeah, we had to disappoint also people that we didn't really expect. And however, because it is an assessment report where you can read what the reasons are, and it's also a gift for your own development as a wave maker, or if you're not been selected. So all those people got the report, and they, yeah, from our perspective, it is in addition to their personal growth, which is extremely useful, either being selected or not being selected.
And this afternoon, during the round table at 12:15, you'll actually meet a wave maker from Frankfurt who's joining us. He was a wave maker, he is leading a project, and he can share his really concrete experience of what it meant for him to be part of that program. So now we're going to move to the how, once the wave makers were selected, what happened? What did we do? And I'm actually surprised I'm on time compared to where I was wanting to be at this particular hour. So, Annemieke, this is going to be for you, and Vincent, please step in as you feel required on Annemiek's presentation. I think, so in terms of approach, Annemieke, so what were the, how would you describe the foundations of this initiative supporting ING?
not only doing the thing, but just also to give a sense of belonging to people who join us, and also that they feel inspired so that really they get more people on board and start a ripple effect. And by doing that, they get a better connection to the purpose and the performance in interaction. Although that was all very virtual, they managed to do this, and I think that is an enormous achievement. And also shows that when you empower people, you really can do so much more, and that you can reach the highest levels of strategy execution. But therefore, it was indeed very important to do the assessment up front so that we knew that we were doing it with people with the right skills and abilities.
This is an important slide, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a very important one, and I love it because as the conceptualizer of this program and a designer of ecosystems, I know you have to go beyond and over and across the silos. And this slide shows very much what we did. We developed networks of highly diverse people who very often never met before. But what we did is that we gave them the skills so that they could make the connections and reach out to to the others. And in a network is a kind of meta organization in which you put in front of the silos. In that network organization, you work horizontally, so there is no hierarchy. There is just um, the behavior to collectively reach the goals, and to do that in a collaborative way, and to show horizontal leadership. And that's what we did across the silos, but also with stakeholders outside. And what we developed, and I think it's an important part, is because it is a tool others can use as well. We made a matrix where we put the four core elements of the strategy of ING Wholesale Bank up front, and then at the side you see the key skills. And during the program, we helped the participants with the skills. We introduced them to the skills, but we also had them in action learning, so they could practice immediately. And management was very instructive in giving of having a very active stand, and they were presenting in very short pieces also the key of the strategies, be it digital, be it green, be it climate co-creation.
And you will see, sorry, Annemieke, you will see later the projects that came out of this, and the projects had to be at the intersection of a strategic intent that Vincent talked about at the beginning, and the development of the skill that ING knew was critical for success for the future. So that was one way of identifying the project. Sorry, Annemieke, go on.
Yeah, but in that sense, we also do in fact, we do in a very effective and fast way two things. That is preparing future leaders uh, for a way of working as desired by ING Wholesale Bank, namely the horizontal leadership and the networking, and at the same time um, um, having the strategy executed. And that was exactly what Vincent was saying in the beginning. What were the two purposes of this project?
So, what did we do, Annemieke? What did we do?
What we do, well, we designed a small team with Vincent, with you, with me, and a few others, and we co-created and co-designed a program in 3 phases over 6 months. And if you have to work virtually, so online, you cannot have the same interaction. But we mimic that as much as possible by having shorter programs of only 2 hours, but doing many, many items in it, so that people really forgot about the time and the 2 hours, in those 2 hours time flies. What we also did is that we popped up many people, be it management, be it in the regions, be it from head office, and that the participants had a direct connection with each other, and that made it extremely horizontal and direct. We had high involvement of top management, and I think that's particularly due to the head of HR and Vincent to convince ING management to join in, and they really did it wholeheartedly. Um, by doing this, we really unleashed a lot of creativity and energy. And that was also the word people very often use. They were energized and they felt a new sense of belonging simply by working together on meaningful issues that had a direct connection with the strategy and with their work and their new skills.
And just an additional word on the involvement of top management. That's not new, of course. Of course, we know it's needed, but Vincent and his colleague from HR at the leadership team level did a tremendous job onboarding the other execs, spending a huge amount of minutes or hours to onboard the other execs. And when we were seeing them speak to the wave makers, we could feel they were not just ticking the box. We could feel
And
that.
also, yeah,
No, and
and
also there, just to add, is that for them it was new as well to stand in the studio as a co-host next to you, Annemiek, or
yeah,
also together with me. We were all pioneering and just seeing, okay, a green screen behind us and just talking to people around the world. But because of the popping up, you really made it very interactive, horizontal, as you just mentioned. And therefore, you had much more a dialogue as if you were in one room
yeah,
and
good.
just having that interaction and see the mimic and also the visual from those people immediately coming through.
I think that's very true. I think that Vincent and I started with being in the studio, and then we invited the other managers as co-hosts. But I think we really succeeded in developing an atmosphere where everybody dared to say what he or she wanted to say. And that was in a bank, however you want to see it, but it is always a rather hierarchical organization. And that is really what we changed, because it was the dialogue, it was the content, it was stimulating ideas, but also giving people room to come into action, to develop projects, and to empower them. And not hearing that only from one manager or from the CEO, but from many managers that really gave um, also it convinced the people wherever they were from Sydney to Los Angeles to convince them that they could be part of this wave.
I'm conscious of time, Annemiek, so is it okay if I move to the detailed slide on the planning,
Yes, of
on
course.
on on
We can do that.
uh, on what we actually did along the time?
Yeah, you can divide it in three parts. In fact, in four parts, because we started in the phase zero to prepare the PAs, the personal assistants. We prepared them with the new technical skills and with the behavioral skills to become I would say, the wave makers in the wave makers role, helping the teams that would come from September on. And in the September, in the yellow phase, we started with um, instructing on the new skills like networking, collaboration, thinking in systems and ecosystems, and reaching out to outside parties. And in the blue phase, and that is starting from end of October, when all the teams in the world were all on the same page. We did two things. We stimulated the teams to come up with topics in line with the strategy, but with a strong regional focus, to come up with themes to build on networks around, so that we could develop projects in which they could apply the newly learned skills. And we also added the circle of influence. So, and that were those people who had a high score but were not selected. And 40 of them were added to the teams to increase the ability to reach the ripple effect, also outside the teams, and then in the orange phase facilitators, we did the reflection.
So maybe Annemiek, just
Yeah.
to clarify a little bit. So we wanted to bridge the gap bottom up towards, let's say, from the work floor to the strategy. And so we invited all those people to come up with ideas how. And so and
Yeah.
they could choose from those four pillars, but it was up to them to use their creativity and to come through with ideas, and also find other people who believed in that idea in order to create their own teams in order to work on that. And I think that was really bottom up, not steered. And I think the biggest question we got, so now what do we have to do?
Yeah.
That's up to you.
And it was interesting to see that we heard, because you can see the regional teams here, Team EMEA, Team APAC, Team Americas. This was not driven from Amsterdam.
No,
Vi-
and I
vi-
think that was very important, not to have the headquarter speaking, but to have the regions taking up the initiatives, and I think also that empower people in the regions and to say, well, now you have the skills, but you also get room to come up with initiatives, gave an enormous energy.
so this is what it looked like. Vin-
Yes, yes. I think here we also should say and can see that we not only had the management, top management as co-host in the studio, but we also had the regional experts from right management in all the sessions, commenting on the skills, commenting on particularly also on behavioral skills and on progress and on how to use that in specific situations. And there was a direct interaction with the participants and with regional management. So it was really a very lively content, and it was also much fun. And I think that's also important to say. It was fun to do.
so talked about the why, talked about the how, both to identify the wave makers and what we actually did all along the months with the four colors that Annemiek commented. But Vincent, back to you. Let's talk outcomes. So what? So what?
Yes, so what? So indeed, as I just mentioned, bottom up, 17 projects came about, and they were clustered around the four pillars. Because yeah, sometimes people are maybe a little bit different, but similar ideas. And so these 17 projects kicked off, and they got the full empowerment together with a management team sponsor to move ahead and to see, okay, yeah, how far can you come? And so if you now look in a year after, of those projects, three stopped. However, what we have done, we had a closing session in October, where they have explained what the reason was. So I think two of those initiatives, it was just too soon. So still good ideas, but maybe a little bit not the right timing to launch those. And so a lot of learnings, a lot of enthusiasm, and very happy that they went through this experience. The other 14, a number of them, I think about six, are really now embedded in the business as usual. So they are truly embedded, and the other ones are still happening. And so I think what we learned from this is that we have connected, we have used or tapped into the collective intelligence we have within the group. We have really created those networks of people that they not really knew each other before, and now they are just creating these waves. And it was good to have such a closure moment, also just to see, okay, but yeah, what effectively happened, and are we happy with the outcome? And the answer is yes. And so we are now engaging with the second wave in order to apply a similar setup going forward.
And just to add my words to this, and this is nearly the closing slide. Uh, the we It was about engaging networks. It was about empowering. the ideas came from the wave makers. They didn't come from Vincent or Vincent's colleagues. So he really was transforming the culture through ideas that were coming from the different wave makers. And remember what Vincent said about the purpose of this was also to connect the workforce with the 4 strategic intents. And the projects had to be connected to the strategic intents. And I remember the session where I gave feedback to the leadership team, Vincent, on their own behaviors and their own scores on the different dimensions. And that you also told me that was a learning moment for the leadership team members. So really pioneering a bottom-up approach. And the final word to you, Vincent, before I close.
Yeah, so if you look at we have to learn. So it's not always easy to give the full empowerment and not knowing what the outcome is going to be. And so you have to accept that some of those projects will fail because there are no guarantees. But if you don't let them just use that empowerment and then you still can create a lot of projects that will add to the strategy. And ultimately, 8 months later, and a little bit longer even, we did another pulse. And so we did another engagement survey, and you see that the numbers on strategy, on leadership, direction, they all have they all went up significantly. And to a great extent, that is through this program that people really understand now what is the purpose and how can I contribute, and I can even contribute in projects that I invent myself.
So, Vincent and Annemieke, we're 1 minute from time, and I just want to thank you for joining us in Frankfurt from Amsterdam, sharing about the why, the how, and the what. And this afternoon, Guru from ING in Frankfurt, who's leading a project, will be at the round table, and Koen, who's a colleague of Annemieke, will also be there to answer any questions on the methodology. Thank you very much.